come in and sit down so I could have him stand up again.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everybody. This is Wyoming on the screen, if anybody still wants to go hiking. Agenda item number 2, meeting minutes from August 16th. Is there any corrections? Comments? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The meeting minutes have been approved. Public comment. We have one person signed up for a public comment. You will get 3 minutes. Denny. Get my timer on. Go ahead, Denny. The floor is yours.
Okay. One of the issues we're going to talk about today is what to do with the current construction bidding status. We're getting projects that are coming in as high as 60 and 70% over NDOT's database. This is not something that is just one-shot deal. I think this is something that's going to be with us for the next 2 to 3 years. We have an OPA that's out to add 2 more years of funding, and I think that some consideration might be given to utilizing some of that money by some scheduling shifting so that local agencies can be made whole or better made whole than what they are right now. If you have a $2 million project and you have a 50% increase, your match goes from $400,000 to $1.4 million. And so what may happen is you may have projects that the region has selected through a competitive scoring project as the best projects in the area, but the project sponsors can't afford it, and so they'll drop out. One option to do this instead of just leaving it as status quo is go to perhaps the February or March budget, whatever's last, and fund everybody and pick a project that we're going to say, you may be the project that won't get bid this year, and move you to the next fiscal year. You can then go into July 11th. I don't know the mechanics of how that gets done intimately. I don't know if there's time enough to do that. But that's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is just add a number, 20, 30, 40% to everybody's programmed amounts, and then realign the program using the stuff in the first fiscal year of our new NOPA to fund everybody out back. How am I doing on my time?
You have 12 minutes.
So that's my point of discussion. And from the practical standpoint, Dean Button had a project he had to get back because the numbers just grew too unreasonable. And I think that whatever you got in the February letting, those tracings are due November 18th. So we should have good numbers on those. But next year's numbers and the year after and the year after, we are not to the point of quantities yet for those. And so we won't be able to give you good numbers, even on the quarterly reports. Like I said, NDOT's bid process, or their unit price process, what's happening is just too dynamic for them to catch up to. So I'll answer any questions if anybody has them, or we can wait till later.
We'll wait till later because we are going to talk about this topic. That is probably the main agenda item on this topic. So, thank you, Jenny. And the next item on the agenda is the spending plan.
So how is NDOT handling that? I mean, if your bid comes in that much over, don't they reject the bid?
Well, there's a couple of ways that this happens. NDOT has a limit, okay? And if you have more than, I think you have 3 or more bidders, you have 4 bidders, and then they can award above 15%.
Yes.
If you have less than 4, then I think they can only award up to 15% above. They still send you a letter to concur. So there's 2 parts of the process. One is the award will by NDOT. Now, another firm has been doing some follow-up, and they're finding that NDOT's not being able to award 50% of their bids through the May letting last year. I haven't gotten an update. So that's a very real possibility, is that the project may not even be awarded. And then the second is, if you are awardable, do you have the money? In the case of the example of the $2 million project, your local match goes from 400 to 1.4 million. You have that.
I think if your engineer's estimate is over $1 million, it is awardable.
But you have to have
Yeah,
number
what's that?
With 4 bidders.
Okay, I thought, okay.
And as we were talking on the way up, there's been a consolidation in the contracting industry. Milestone and Rick Riley have been gobbling up small firms. You no longer, the days of having 5 bidders on a job that's $2 million, those days are past.
Right. Right, I mean, with regards to bridges, if you have a bridge, which only affects 2 people in the room, one is here, the other one isn't, but anyway, it affects 2 players or 3 players in the Emergency region, which are the counties. Bridges there's more options with bridges. But yes, you're right, although I think there are some Illinois contractors coming over. I'm not sure how much paving Passion does, but they're mainly structural. They're mainly a bridge person. Like
They're subbing out all their paving on our big western project.
Okay.
Passion is-
So yeah, they're subbing it out to Reed Riley or some other one.
Gallagher has tried to do some over there in Hampton.
And Dyer does some. So there are some out there that they're taking the smaller projects. If you have a big paving project, it's pretty much going to be like you said, Jenny. It is going to be one of those 2, Reed Riley or Milestone.
So if you only have 2, then go into 15%. So we're saying we're going to have 3 to get to it.
Yeah, 4.
4. Well, 4 to get it.
Right. So if you have less than 4 bidders, then it's even if it's you have to have 4 bidders to be awardable if it's over 15%. If the low bid is over 15% of the engineer's estimate.
You have to have 4 bidders.
Correct.
If you have 4 bidders and it's over 15%, the local can award if they want to pick up the.
Yeah, NDOT will say, we can award it. They'll send you a letter that asks for concurrence. And you have to pick up the difference between the program amount and the bid at this point.
Now, if it's MPO money, we can contribute up to that 80%, or 90 if it's an 8% project. But that 80% we can contribute up to that. But then that takes money away from projects later on in the year. John, or Mike.
So, Dennis raised a good point, but that's as far as the OPA. My question is, what is it done to their own? Are they engineering? Are they delaying projects? I would dare say it's probably a combination of the 2.
It's a combination of the 2. You're changing some of the modeling, rescoping, pushing
if you have the time to value engineer it before RFC, or you just re-let it.
Well, no, you just stop that. Entire program. Snowball effect.
Correct. Correct.
You're not taking care of what's from today. You're gonna get a more money. I'm thinking about next year, year end. This is gonna be a cascading effect.
Correct. Correct. And there might be even some lobbying, but I'm not sure about that. That is another option that they have, to lobby the state for more money, the legislators for more money. I don't know what they're thinking, as far as senior leadership at INDOT, how to fix this problem. But as far as, I think it's a combination of everything. Re-engineering, or downscoping, right-sizing, pushing projects out, value engineering.
Dennis raises a good point. A lot of fun, we've got to move someone out of this system. You need to go to the next system, you know, the cascade thing. And here we are, we're on the cusp of trying to make more projects. Which is only going to make people more projects.
Well, I mean, but yeah, Dennis has a good point. We want a lot more projects in. We want to fill up our 27 and 28, which is normally what we do. But then that doesn't help us with 23, 24, 25, and 26.
Unless you got volunteers that are 22 or 23.
We have some projects that I would volunteer for the communities that are, we do have some projects that are at risk. They, quite frankly, moving them from a March to a July letting would probably ease some tensions with them.
And Charles Colbert would be willing to do that with our Marcel roundabout for a variety of reasons. We would be willing to let that slide a year.
Well, that is a big project.
Yeah.
That is a big project.
So we'll offer it because we think it's important that the projects be fully funded before we put more in the pipeline.
Okay. I know Hammond has another big project. Those are our two big projects this year. I think Hammond would be, because Dean is would be very happy to see that.
For sure, yeah.
So,
Yeah, Summer Street's prices have gone up. We're getting, $10 million project could be a $15 million project now. This was a project that we originally selected on a phased approach, and then more money came available through some rescue plan money. I forget what the name of the program was. So we pulled those two phases together, and now the prices are very high. So we'd like to move forward with it, but there's no NERC match. I'd hate to be the one to pull my project and then try to find a home for $8, $9, $10 million worth of money.
yeah. I think,
Denny brought up sort of a point earlier, in his earlier comments about how projects have, if I get this right, projects have sort of increased from when we originally were selected.
correct.
And we're not at a point where we really know what the true estimate is, or current cost opinion is from the engineer, because we're working our way through. Should we go back to the time in which these projects were selected and sort of update our estimates based upon that condition, rather than the detailed estimate that we are, so that we come back to NERC with our project saying, this is what our forecast is for these projects. And it may already be in there, right? Maybe already be in the spending plan, where we're forecasting a higher amount, to show you as an LPA that my project's 30% more now. We add up all those together and the effect of what happens when we have to move a project out of the fiscal year and see if that sort of determines how much of this out year funding should be reduced to assigned to projects, and the rest, the upper part, used to fund currently selected projects. Does that make sense?
Yeah, Danny, you jumped on that. It seems like a good idea to go back and look at these, because the days of engineers estimates being high are gone right now. We can't get it right. I mean, that's my frustration, even on our local projects. Concrete prices are ridiculous. So that might be good to go back and look at that and then readjust the allocations, that 80-20, and see where we're at before we start giving out the next NOVA and giving all that money away. You can't keep pushing everybody down, Peter and Paul again. You get somebody like Obert that helps, but we still got to get him back in the system. So,
Well, if we moved what Denny was proposing, so if we moved over, and I'm just saying, I'm just throwing this scenario out there. If we moved over, we would only move over to 2024.
True.
But then we probably need 2 in 24 that'll go to 25, and 3 in 25 that'll go to 26.
Right,
exactly.
right.
Yeah.
So there is a cascading effect.
But still, everybody only moves
1 year.
Yeah.
1 year, yeah, because currently, and that might help with Michigan Avenue and or Michigan Boulevard, and
Michigan and Indy, we asked NERC for $385K, came in at $1 million. So, I mean, it's a project we can't do, right? I mean, we're not going to come up with the money to do that.
even if
not
NERC made you 80%.
I suppose we would do that if NERC made it whole, right? But we had to tell the state we're not awarding the project.
Right. So I mean,
The other thing is the conditions changed a lot, right, in that project. That project was based upon the ridership of NIC, right?
Right.
At the Chicago train station. That was the bulk of the problem with that intersection. That ridership is so far down that intersection isn't at the level of service, as bad a level of service as it was pre-COVID. Right? And so it was like, it's not as urgent today as it was 2 years ago.
right.
And so now are we spending emergency money in a good way? Right? At the time, it was important, but today, if it would have come in reasonably, we would have moved forward with it. But when it comes in unreasonably, and the need for it isn't there, and I think there was some heartburn in this committee that we were spending money on a state asset.
Right, and that was one of the loopholes that you yourself helped NERC close, because you admitted, because you were on the NOFA improvement committee the first year, and we closed the loophole which now the loophole has been closed so that if it is, the rule states that if the project is on an NDOT controlled intersection or NDOT controlled system, that NERC will only pay 40% of that, or the LPA and NERC will only pay 50% of that, and then of course we pay 80% of 50%, and therefore, so that comes up to 40%. So that's how NERC will only. Yeah, you brought that
We
up.
scored great on the project.
Right.
It was a valuable need for the region. It isn't today. And so spending Hammond money and NERC money in the end didn't make sense. And so I don't know that it's really a project that this group wants to move forward with. I mean, that's true.
Right.
We don't need the project because it's not, the level of service isn't what it was before. It's really not asset. What are we doing to improve NDOT's gonna improve the intersection anyway. They're making, westbound left-hand turns a second. We bought right away. We haven't paid for the engineering work. I mean, we're into it for money, but it's time to just back off.
The other thing is a timing issue. The February 11 tracings are due November 18th. And February, March at the latest would be the last letting. You really should try to schedule it. So you only got about 6 weeks.
Right.
If you were to decide to do this, and Dean agreed, and you agreed, and all that, so tick-tock, the clock is ticking on this type of thing. And the days when you used to be able to move from one letting to the next for a rebid are gone. It's now a 3-month move. And so if you miss the February letting, you can't relet yet this fiscal year. You're going to the next fiscal year.
That's if I have, if NERC has the funds.
Yeah.
So,
I was just saying, it's a very dynamic situation with a lot of interplay.
right. I think.
Well, hopefully that money can be used for something else, right? Something that's more valuable for the rest of the community.
Right. Actually, I put that back in the kitty. So we do have some time before obviously we have some time before we accept the projects that were proposed in the notebook. So,
Coming though?
yes. Well, we've got till basically March 1st-ish. Next year, 2023, before we have to decide what projects we are going to fund in 27, 28.
Well, and realistically, I can see a rating list of those projects with a priority list where we might have 10 projects identified, and we may be only able to pull 3 of them into the mix. I mean, is that something that is logical for everybody?
You could select on the basis of full funding, but have, right, a priority, which usually is the score.
Right.
And then if you say, okay, we end up saying we use 75% of the first year's money, then you cut back in that category 75%, and you just go up the list and you hit that.
And if the highest scoring project is a $5 million project, and we don't have that, we may have to skip that and grab the second and third projects, which we might have money
Days or something. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
I don't think
So
there's any.
I think we're entering probably a 5-year period where our spending plan is just going to be much more fluid than it has been in years past.
I don't foresee in the next 3 years that we're going to see a pullback from this. Not significant.
No.
One other idea I have is, what the heck can we do with the index rule about not being able to roll money over? Is there people we can lobby to get that ability back? Because that isn't going to be the solution for what we're looking at, but it surely would be a tool that we could use that would help.
I don't think that's an NDOT issue. I think that's a federal highway rule.
Really?
But it begs the point. We're dealing with an environment that is so different and could be at the MPO Council and NDOT perhaps petition the federal highway to relax that for the next year or two, to give us some breathing room and some flexibility to adapt to. I mean, we've had 2 things that have collided together that has created this crap storm. One is we were already building at capacity. We were capacity in the engineering community, we were capacity of the construction community. COVID come along, the labor market, for whatever reason, has not returned. And on top of that, you have put more money into the system. And so these 2 things have combined to create increased pricing. I'm being simplistic, but there's other things than that. But there's a lot of things, but these 2 things were significant drivers of what's occurring. That's a different situation than what we have faced before, and maybe might be faced for a temporary relief of this use all your money in 1 year, you don't get to use it all. I think you're right, but I still think
I mean,
it's this way.
it's much more chaotic on the FDA side because they can carry funds over. But on the FDA side, we have 5307, which is being carried over, was it 5 years? David?
Yeah.
Here, I'll just pull it up.
Well, for some categories, it's 3 years.
So, yeah, that's where I was going. So they have 5307, which is the equivalent of SDBG. That's the current year plus 5 years that you can use that money. Just to throw this up there. 5337, which is for rail. That is current year plus 3 years. 5339 is bus and bus facilities. That's current year plus 3 years. 5310, which is
Human services.
yeah, and that is current year plus 2 years. So those are all equivalent to SDBG, CMAC, HSIP. So if each one of those had their own fluidity, it's very hard to track it on the FDA side, so to speak. And if we had that, so that's the only thing that I would caution against if Federal Highway did that. Federal Highway is very clean in the fact that it's just use it or lose it for anything. Like,
Well, imagine that, so it's on the highway side, SDB, and all that, what are we talking? What's the program?
we have about 25 million.
25 million. What are the prices increasing?
We started out with 20 and then we got like $5 million increase.
No.
Well, I'm just saying,
What
one
are
month.
30%?
Could be more. My project was 300 300%.
So, 6 million.
So,
6 million, right?
yeah. And
6
we,
million a year, let's say, for the next 3 years, then, what, 18 million?
yeah.
What are we spending a note for?
Well, for 1 and a third year,
Right.
quarter year. We need to submit the NOFA because we need to program our funds out that year.
I guess the point I'm trying to make is, I think there's a big problem here, I agree with all the colleagues that they're saying. And at the same time, you're asking for a NOFA, which is a lot of work. And probably not be only able to fund 1 year.
It's the life we're in, right?
I'm not disagreeing,
Maybe delay the NOFA for a year.
that's where I'm going.
But then you end up with scattered.
Oh, wait, there used to be a
Years
3 year
by
no rules that we have to follow.
You have to have a.
Well, in the tip is a 5-year tip.
Right.
Because in
Requires 5 years.
yeah, it used to be 4 years. But NDOT, well, it's the current year plus 3 years. So, which is 4 years. NDOT has asked the MPOs, and I'm using the word ask, to go to a 5-year tip because they have a 5-year program. And so therefore, the MPO's program will line up with their program, and everyone would have a 5-year tip. Federal Highway doesn't care. As long as that 5th year is illustrative. So they'll look at it, and we can program, for 2028, we can program $60 million worth of projects. They don't care. But from 23, 24, 25, and 26, and 27, we can only program 25 million because that is all the money that we're predicting that we will have
For each year.
for each year. Yes.
So Mike, you get that, I guess I'm part of, we're gonna get 25 million, or 50 to 2027, 2028. We're gonna take up 18 of it already, with all this money that we have to move back. I mean,
So,
you have to limit the NOFA or do something. You can't just have it wide open where we're taking all these projects everybody thinks they're getting funded, and then we continue this problem again.
But you'll only fund the $30 million you have available.
Correct. Well, that's what we have to decide. As long as everybody agrees we're going to do that.
And it's not just the inflation, the snowball going down the hill, and I've always seen it, and you and I talk about, is forget this inflation going on. How about the projects that don't make it in the year? And then we scramble to spend $2, $3, $4 million at the end of the year trying to get, that's it.
yeah,
That means someone's moving down.
so we have that because I don't know, we don't know what the lottery is. And I say that in jest because we don't know what the construction bids are going to be. So if we say that a project, if the engineer's estimate says that a project is going to be $1.2 million, we don't know what the low bid is going to be, so we program 1.2 million. So, and if it comes in at 1.1 million, then I have an extra $100,000. And where do I spend that? Where the next project may come in at 1.3 million. So that's why we look through PE and right away to dump the extra funds in there.
So you just solidify my point, and that you had some slip in there, you can manage that.
And we had, I think, $350,000 a year for change orders. We had $350,000 slush fund in there. That's programmed in there. Now the out years, we did put more of a slush fund out there because we didn't want to, because right now we're programming 27, 28, and we do allow PE and right-of-way to be funded. We do have some funds in 25 and 26 for PE and right-of-way. So we said that if someone needs a project that wants to go to construction in 27, 28, they can get PE and right-of-way in 25 and 26.
So those funds could be used to help
Yes.
fund the shortfall so that we mitigate as many projects moving.
Well, but then again, if a municipality is looking to use that, if they need that PE or right-of-way, then they're not going to have that PE or right-of-way until 27, 28.
Understand?
So then we just go back to, we're not funding any, we're not initially funding any PE or right-of-way. Then maybe we go with that. Just say we're not going to initially be funding any PE or right-of-way.
But the reason, the point I was trying to bring up, Charles, is we come to the end of this, it's not the end of this week, you've already started. You've got an eye on projects. They say they're going to be in February, but they don't even have right away. I'm saying if we miss that window, what we do is we scramble to find to spend that money. I agree.
Well,
Yeah,
this
you
year,
can't roll.
I'm not scrambling.
Understood. That's not to say the years following. but
Correct.
Historically, you're always scrambling every year to talk about the money because the project is made.
Right.
Now you're exposing yourself because you can't have that money created.
Right.
But he's monitoring the risky projects, right? I mean,
Yes.
he sort of knows if this project is.
I've already, I've got two projects, I have two projects that are high risk. One, I think if we could move them to 24, there would be such a sigh of relief, everybody in Northwest Indiana would hear. Another one, I've already pulled their construction funds. I haven't told them yet, but I've already pulled their construction funds because it's no way it's gonna, there's just no way.
Then when you move to the next fiscal year, that means something that moves out of that year. And so on and so forth.
Correct.
And we know that.
I know you know that. I'm just trying, I'm just
No.
math in my head. In 26, 27, but some of those projects are probably actually in 26, 27.
27, 28. Yes, yes. So, do we want to have a working group to come up with this?
We should be multimodal because remember, all of these timelines
Right.
and issues and concerns are totally foreign to flex highway dollars. One of the reasons why we give money is because we have to do to obligate it relatively quickly and initiate a project. And we are getting cost overruns and higher costs for transit, but not nearly. I mean, we need a steering sometimes. Somebody's talking about it. So there's going to be a working group.
But to David's point, the transit funding, which funds operating assistance, they're having to pay, before they were paying their drivers $15 an hour, now they have had to gone up to $20 an hour for their drivers.
Yeah, someone is employing a whole lot of bus drivers, yes, across the going down.
Yeah.
Earlier, I think Dean said, go back and look at the numbers. It seems like there ought to be an exercise for every project that's currently in the city to go back and review numbers that were provided some years ago, so we can get a more realistic picture of what funds are available in 27, 28. That could change projects that are being submitted under this NOFA. So I think the question that breeds is whether or not November 18th date for the NOFA is realistic or not, and whether we can shift that in some way after we've had a full evaluation of everything that's existing. I don't know where that's where you're going. So I think maybe that's really a first step with the due date. Hey, we need updated numbers for all existing projects by X date. Next step, okay, what do we have available for all 27, 28 NOVA?
What do we do? Here's the new numbers. What do we do?
Yeah, as far as shifting things, right?
Then we're deciding.
Right, I see your point. My concern is that my first real NOFA was due in December, right? We were scrambling to get it done, we were scrambling to try to get and meet the deadline that the state imposed on getting the tip done. So if we push the NOFA date back, we're just compressing the time that we have to get done. I think all activities need to happen. We need to go back and look at our projects that are on the tip now that were previously approved and on the schedule, and give Charles a reasonable update on where we are, which all the quarterly should suggest that, right? I mean, we should be updating our estimates in all our quarterly reports, so that should be fairly topical. And then have a group of people, or this group, it shouldn't be limited, I don't think, but have people get together and say, this is how it's going to have to work, and sort of agree on that, and then determine how much money is left for the NOFA. And concurrently, which is just more work, is get our projects in on that time frame. I mean, to push this off, I think is risky because it's just going to make us rush to complete.
So moving the NOFA back to November 18th, I don't think would have any effect. People are still going to submit the projects they're going to submit. It will have an effect upon the scoring. The first year we did this NOFA, the staff and the topical committees, there were some legendary topical committee meetings that went on for 2 days here at University right before Christmas. And I don't think anybody in this room wants to sit in 2 days of meetings going through projects right before Christmas.
You said legendary.
Infamous is probably a better word, not legendary. But it was ugly. There were a lot of people that were exhausted, staff included. So I think moving it past November 18th is not going to affect. People are still going to submit the same projects they're going to submit. We do have some cushion in there for everyone. I mean, you got November, December, or excuse me, December and January, and some of February. You really needed to go over the top of the committee and for staff to go over those projects and make sure that everything is included and everything's scored. The scores are accurate and so on and so forth. And then we need to, staff needs to sit down and write the new tip and get all the projects lined up and everything by March 1st. Because that's when the 30-day public comment period starts for all of our projects, as well as our new tip. You see, we have air quality conformity going on in there. That's assuming we know pretty much what the projects are up to, prior to that. But March 1st, NDOT hasn't given me a date that when the draft tip, because they review the tip, Federal Highway reviews the tip to make sure that everything is copacetic and everything is A-okay. It's good to go. They generally just offer minor comments, but they're also looking at 14 different MPOs, tips, as well as the RPOs submit their tips. So we're looking at RPO tips also, as well as NDOT statewide transportation improvement program. So they're all, so moving that November 18th date back is only going to cause heartburn for all of us. Now, what we can do is leave the NOFA as it is, and then the scoring is going to come out, I think. And if a project scored well, it scores well. I mean, and it may score well and still not get chosen. Yeah, up here, we say we have 216 million. Okay, now we realize that's probably, if we go this route, that's probably not going to be the case. I don't know what that's going to be, but it's probably going to be, take 30% off that, so it's probably 180 million, 190 million then. So, but we still need to have projects in 2027. We don't need to have any projects in 2028, because that's the illustrative year. But we're looking to build a project out. We do need to have projects in 2027. So now, looking at our TIP and the way we're talking, we may only put in, of the 25 million, maybe we only put in $6 million worth of projects in 2027. But still, at $6 million, we should be showing that we need. We do not want to give Federal Highway, or more importantly, NDOT, reason to say, well, you're not using all your money, so we're not going to give you as much the next year. We want to show everybody that we have a need. And so I think we just keep going with the NOFA. I know all of the consultants are busy working, and a bunch of the municipalities are working on what projects they're going to submit. Giving everybody more time might be nice, but then I think it's going to come back and bite us in the rear.
I think that snowball's already rolling down the hill. So we should keep it the schedule that we've got. What we do with those projects.
And this schedule's been established for a long time. We all know it's coming.
Right.
So, I don't mean to be disagreeable here, but I just think that we just need to move forward and give you enough information that sets the tone for what money we're giving.
So then maybe we schedule another Rock meeting and just discuss this and only this. We can make it a working group. So maybe we don't need it, but we can decide that later, whether or not we need to have this or put on YouTube. We can figure that out later.
Sooner the better, though, Debbie's point.
Yes, sooner the better. I'm not talking about putting this off till March 1st. Trust me, no, not March 1st.
Yeah, he's talking about November 18th, late March, or February.
February letting was November 18th.
So,
So this year's projects, 23's projects, you should have good estimates on. But the 24, 25, 26 projects are the ones that we haven't pulled quantities yet, and so we don't have good numbers. But if you tell us that we need to come up with good numbers, give us 3 or 4 weeks to do it, we can probably come up with more realistic estimates than what we used at programming, and go on the basis of what bid experiences we've been seeing, and we could give you better numbers to look at this thing more realistically.
okay. Is that agreeable with everybody then? 3 weeks? Actually, I should be asking.
Is that enough time for the project to come to March 11th? Or do we have any?
Well, you know what? I think if we need to move a project out, we could just move it out from 23 to 24. And then it just move to July.
That helps you out more.
Right.
That is July lettings.
Those are automatic, the projects that are still in the batch, if they haven't come on yet.
Yes.
I guess that's
So, yeah, what we would do is we would move a project or two from 23 to 24. And then we could figure out how that's going to filter out. And then see how we can get everybody up to make sure that I have updated estimates for the spending plan for 23. And then we'll also look at 24 also. And get realistic schedules in there too. One of the things that's really kind of been creeping lately are the schedules. And that's because right-of-way's been creeping up there. Environmental's just been horrible. Thank you for the kind words. So a lot of our projects that were originally supposed to be in quarters 1 and 2 are now seeing themselves in quarters 3, 4, 4 of that year. And we all know if you're in quarter 4 and if you have a hiccup, yeah, you're SOL. Then, what date are we looking for as far as early December? For the next meeting, early December?
Don't you think? That's 4 weeks out.
Yeah, 29th is forward, so it's like December 6th or something.
It doesn't need to be a Tuesday. I mean, we could meet on the 29th. It could be any day of the week, really.
It's 2 days, right? It's 2 days after the holiday.
Yeah. We want to meet on, I think the 6th starts getting into other committee meetings. You know?
Yes.
I don't know what it would be on the nurse's website. Right. It's the 15th. So NERC has no meetings on the last week in November.
How about Tuesday the 29th?
And the 6th has nothing either, but I think we, as a couple of people mentioned, the sooner the better. We want to schedule a meeting on the 29th.
Works for me.
Is that a meeting where all the updated, most up-to-date schedules and estimates would need to be provided to go over the effect of that intent?
Yes.
We need to have it to you like maybe Wednesday the 23rd before Thanksgiving,
Yes. Do not give it to me.
Monday the 28th.
No. Do not give it to me on the 27th. Do not give me on the 26th. Just so everybody knows, I will never ever have anything due on Monday morning. Everything will be due on Friday or the day before a holiday. Okay? I don't believe in making people work on the weekend to get an OPA application in.
Thank you.
That is just, I've seen that before, and I almost, it just drives me crazy that someone would force someone to work all weekend when you don't need to. So, that's just my little thing. So if we have to do everything, we need to go on the 23rd. Those of you in the back, is that okay? Okay. This will be, tentatively, it's going to be a working group. I will, when I send the invite out, I will tell you whether it's a working group or not. What do you think, Candace? Is it need to be a working group?
Is there a difference?
It's solid, yeah.
So working,
I
okay.
think it would be good. Are you addressing anything in addition to this issue?
No, just this,
Just
but,
no proof, right?
well, we would be approving,
Today's minutes.
we would be approving today's minutes, we'd be approving projects, moving and stuff like that. So I guess it would have to be open to the public. So it won't be working group.
We have another schedule, what's the next schedule, Rob?
February. Yeah,
It would need to be public.
yeah, so this will be, so the next meeting will be on the 29th, and we'll discuss this topic and this topic only.
Yeah, limit the topic.
Yes.
I think 2 hours is enough for that.
I think 2 hours should be enough.
Which projects have to do all this? Everybody, like 124?
Everybody that has a project in 23, 24, and maybe even 25. I mean, granted, the estimates in 25 are going to be,
Still out there.
let me ask you
This
this.
is program that we should take a look at. Everything is
Yeah, everything is programmed, okay. How much contingency should we allow for 25 and 26? Or do we should allow any contingencies?
Your estimates are gonna have contingencies still at that point, they're.
Well, I think given the nature of what we're talking about, it's right, we're gonna build those numbers into those estimates.
Because NDOT's telling you, right,
Yeah,
to
they're
up your
actually,
estimate,
for the
because
first time in history, they're now saying, add 15% to our numbers. They've never said that. And that's not enough. But anyway, I think given the circumstances, we all will probably build in what we think are the best estimates
Okay.
for that period of time. So in that year, we'll give you that number. And then if you want to move the project, then you apply your 5 or 10 or whatever percent that you apply, you move one from one year to the next.
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll open up.
Based on that year,
Okay.
what we expect the project to be.
Yes, NDOT has an inflation calculator, which takes into account inflation for all the different items in the project. For instance, a bridge, you're gonna have steel, you're gonna have pre-stressed beams, you're gonna have concrete, you're gonna have labor for concrete masons, you're gonna have labor for the iron workers, you're gonna have labor for everybody. And I will bring that one, I'll pull that up every meeting if we're gonna, see how we're gonna move things. Or if you give me the most, yeah, that's what I'll do. And we'll figure out how much to add if you're moving from 24 to 25, or if you're moving from 23 to 24, it should be pretty much static. But 24 to 25, and 25 to 26, and 26 to 27 also. So,
Charles?
yes.
Just a point of clarification, whether or not the motion you've got all you need. You said there's two projects that are in the about 23.
I need to talk to them.
So with them moving, you can take care of anybody in February, March. No, that's important.
Well, it depends on what the costs come in. I mean, we're worried about how our Summer Street project's gonna come in. Right? I mean,
When's that left?
okay. I don't know what projects he's talking about, and I don't want to know. We'll find out in due course, but
The meeting we're talking about isn't going to help that.
But not everybody who has projects in 23 and 24 is at this meeting participating. So,
What we're going to do about it,
we will address, we will figure out how we can get these monies on the 29th.
or the LPA's covering the excess, right? I mean, that's.
We have your updated costs, I give your updated
We have.
estimate, contingent estimate, but if it would come in over 15% above, you don't get full bids. But your concern is it's coming even more than what you're right now, just because it's
Who knows?
yeah, it's so crazy.
I hope it's gonna come in very favorable because it's the right time to bid.
And Bill's project is in November, your Colorado Street,
Colorado's bidding in January.
January also?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I thought it was November. But anyways,
Colorado at 30.
so we'll figure out how we can afford both those projects, and if we have to move a project or two out, then we'll do that. Moving on, is this anything else on this topic? Okay, moving on, number 5, the NOFA update. Does anybody have any questions for right now?
So it says setting up one-to-one. Cameron will be asking, we're not prepared to set a date yet, but we will be making sure that we've done
Okay.
and others and talk to you about our projects.
There is one thing that I forgot to mention last week at the NOFA workshop, is that I'm asking everybody to submit their projects into Arctic for the NOFA.
Whether it's selected or not.
Whether it's selected or not. There is a module on here, CFP, that I have highlighted here. It's called for projects. So you'll submit all your projects. You can see, you have basically go into amend TIP projects. We walked you through this, but there's 2 projects that are submitted in here. LaPorte County submitted a project. And basically they just went in, you go in and you fill out everything in there. You already have everything.
But you gotta build a schedule and everything? How do you do
No,
that?
you just put everything in 2023. You don't build a schedule.
Okay,
You put everything, they put 20 in 24, 26, and 27. I'm telling you to put everything in 2023 because all your money here is in 2023 dollars. So they went and told me that they wanted EE in 2024, right away in 2026, and construction in 2027. This is the first one that I've gotten, so please put everything in 2023.
This is the only page that needs to be filled out for each project.
You're gonna have to fill out, no, you're gonna have to fill out this page, the map. The map is easy, you just pull it up. You click on a project, you click on a, map is really simple. You find your intersection, you find your stretch of road, you highlight it, and then you save it.
So the TIP program.
Yes, and then documents is the other page. And this is where all your documents are going to be. You're going to upload documents.
No, the number required.
Yeah. And here's your upload button. LaPorte County had no problems uploading this other than the one error message that they received at the beginning. And I couldn't resolve that, so I sent a help desk to get in. Yes?
I sent you an email, maybe you've already responded. Where do you get the maps? The EJ and deployment and all of that?
Those are on the application.
They are.
They're like blue text on first page.
So if you go to the application tab, right here, maps,
Oh, okay.
and you click on that, there are 2 maps that are not on there, and they will be a separate tab on the application. But if you click on that maps, here are all the maps. This is your functional classification for this application. You click on the ADT, and here's the ADT for all the sections of roads. ADT for State Road 130 in this section is 9,089. Okay. Like I said, there's 2 new maps that were given to me late, so I will. So I just put those in as tabs on the application.
Yet to come.
Yes. Any other questions on NOFA? Moving on to other new business.
There's a Willow Creek meeting November 15th at Fort County Expo Center, which maybe Chris might like to see more on that one. The meeting November 15th.
Yeah, public information meeting.
Right.
Update everybody on where the progress of the project is. November 15th at the Porter County Fairgrounds Exposition Building, 5:30 p.m.
Any estimated length of the 2 or 3 hours? Or don't know.
Depends on how the discussion goes.
Okay.
There won't be a virtual component though there.
Again,
There won't be a virtual component though there.
I think there will, yes.
that's bus station.
I mentioned before, I'm just gonna bring this up. We are looking at a new E-tip. NDOT is building an E-tip for all of the MPOs. And it should be out sometime next spring. They want it in by March 1st. I think it's very aggressive. I think they'll have a beta out on March 1st. But I think sometime by April, we will have a new E-tip. We may not switch over to that E-tip until later on in the summer. Our current, just to give everyone a little background, our current contract goes in with our tip goes until September 30th. So we may hang on with our tip until later on in the summer and then transition over. But as far as the consultants in the room are going, it would be the same for any other MPO in the state. I am not sure about Indianapolis MPO, but as far as Maycog, as far as Mercy, as far as Evansville, Kipta, Kokomo, Lafayette, I think they will all be on the new E-tip. And you'll see a lot of similarities with what ICAP has on it. You'll see also similarities with the call for projects. So it should make life a lot easier. And we're designing it from the ground up within NDOT's funds. So. Any other new business? Moving on to adjournment. Our next regularly scheduled meeting is not February 14th, it is November 29th. 2022. Any motion to adjourn? All those in favor of adjournment? Aye. Opposed? Thank you, everybody.
No, Marcelo.